My name is Claire Anderson. I'm 29 years old, and my story begins with a sound I'll never forget. It was past midnight when I woke to the faint creak of wood, echoing from somewhere beneath my feet. At first, I thought it was just the old house settling, but then I realized it was coming from the basement. The problem was, our home didn't have a basement. Or so I thought. White right pointing backhand index before I share what happened next. Tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. That night, I sat up in bed, heart pounding in my chest. My husband, Mark, lay sound asleep beside me, completely unaware. I tried convincing myself it was the wind or loose shutter, but the sound came again, slower this time, as if someone was deliberately moving below us. I slipped out of bed and pressed my feet against the cold hardwood, my palms sweaty as I gripped the doorknob of our bedroom. The hallway was dark, only a thin stream of moonlight coming through the window. Every creak of the floor made me flinch as I crept toward the living room. That's when I noticed it. The rug in the corner wasn't lying flat. Its edges were curled upward, as though it had been moved recently. I bent down and pulled it back. My breath caught in my throat. There it was, a wooden trapdoor I had never seen before. I froze, staring at the latch. We'd moved into this house 6 months ago. The realtor mentioned it was old, built in the 1940s, but never said a word about a basement. I remember signing the paperwork, standing in the kitchen with Mark, and joking about the squeaky stays. Nothing, absolutely nothing, about a hidden door. I touched the handle, but something in me hesitated. Memories of my childhood came rushing back. Stories my grandmother used to tell about her own home, where secrets were buried under the floorboards. I brushed it off at the time, but now I couldn't shake the feeling. Behind me, the clock ticked, each second louder than the last. The house was quiet again, but my pulse told me danger wasn't gone. The next morning, I tried to bring it up casually with Mark. Did you know about the trapdoor in the living room? I asked, spooning cereal into my bowl. He froze for a moment, then laughed. Trapdoor? Claire, you've been watching too many movies. This house barely holds itself up, let alone some secret basement. But I knew what I saw. His dismissive tone only fueled my suspicion. Why would he brush it off so quickly unless he already knew? I decided not to push him further, at least, not yet that afternoon. When Mark went to wake, I returned to the trapdoor. My hands trembled as I lifted the latch. It groaned, resisting at first, then popped open. A stale, earthy smell drifted upward, like damp soil and forgotten wood. The darkness below seemed endless. I found a flashlight in the kitchen drawer, crouched down, and shined the beam inside. Stays. Narrow wooden steps, leading straight down. Dust floated in the light like tiny ghosts, and the air felt heavy with silence. I almost climbed in right then, but a sudden knock at the front door startled me. It was Mrs. Thompson, our elderly neighbor, holding a basket of apples from her garden. She glanced behind me, toward the half-covered trapdoor, and her smile faded. You found it, didn't you? She whispered. I stiffened. Found what? Mrs. Thompson shifted uncomfortably. This house. It keeps secrets. The last family, well, they left in a hurry. Some doors should stay closed, Dee. I tried to press her for more, but she shook her head and walked away, leaving me with more questions than answers. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, listening for noises, waiting for creaks. My mind spun with images. Who had built that basement? Why had no one mentioned it before? And why did Mark act like it didn't exist? Over the next few days, I found myself drawn back to the trapdoor. It was like a magnet pulling at my thoughts. I'd catch myself staring at it while doing chores, imagining what could be down there. Old furniture, forgotten photographs, or something worse. One evening, I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, staring at the rug covering the door. My fingers tightened around the mug until my knuckles turned white. Finally, I made a decision. I wasn't going to ignore it anymore. The house was quiet. Mark was in his study, typing away on his laptop. I told him I was going to bed early. Instead, I slipped into the living room, pulled back the rug, and lifted the door. The smell hit me again, stronger this time, like mildew and dust that had been trapped for decades. I set the flashlight between my teeth, gripped the railing, and lowered myself onto the first step. The wood groaned beneath my weight. 1 step, 2 steps. The air grew colder with each breath. My heart raced, but I couldn't stop. I needed to know. Halfway down, my light caught something. Writing, carved into the wall beside the stairs. Letters scratched in jagged lines. Don't come back. My stomach twisted. Who had written that? And why? I was about to turn and run when I heard it again. The creak. Only this time, it wasn't above me. It was coming from below. Someone, or something, was down there. My hand shook as I gripped the flashlight, trying to aim it into the darkness. The beam flickered against a concrete floor, but before I could make sense of the shadows, the sound stopped. Silence swallowed me whole. I felt frozen between 2 choices: run back upstairs and pretend I never opened that door, or keep moving forward and face whatever waited in the dark. My decision in that moment would change everything. I stood frozen, halfway down the stairs, gripping the flashlight so tightly that my knuckles ached. The silence below felt heavier than any sound could. My breath came out in quick, shallow bursts, clouding in the cold, damp air. For a second, I wondered if my mind was playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew I wasn't alone. The beam of my light flickered across the concrete floor, landing on scattered debris, old planks of wood, what looked like rusted cans, and a broken chair tipped over in the corner. But then I noticed something strange. Dust covered everything, yet a path in the middle was clear, as though someone had walked there recently. I forced myself down the last steps, each creak echoing in the stillness. My legs trembled, but I kept moving, the air thick with the smell of mildew and earth. Hello. My voice cracked as I whispered the word. It sounded foolish the moment it left my lips, swallowed by the darkness. No reply came, only the distant drip of water. I swept the light along the far wall and froze. A small wooden table stood there, warped with age. On it lay a stack of photographs. My pulse quickened as I stepped closer, the beam illuminating black and white images curled at the edges. The first one showed our house, at least what looked like it decades earlier, before the paint was fresh and the windows replaced. The second photo made my stomach twist, a family I didn't recognize, standing on the very porch I walk through every day. A man, a woman, and 2 children, all staring at the camera with hauntingly blank expressions. I shuffled through the rest. They were all the same family, different years, always in front of the house. Until the last picture. That one stopped me cold. It was recent. I could tell by the clarity, the glossy print. And this time, it was me and Mark, standing on the porch just weeks after we moved in. But neither of us remembered taking it. The hair on the back of my neck rose. I dropped the photos back onto the table, my hand trembling. That's when I heard it again. The creak. This time it came from the far corner of the basement, beyond where the flashlight reached. Who's there? I demanded, louder this time, though my voice shook. The silence stretched on, suffocating. I inched forward, the beam cutting through the shadows. The corner revealed an old cabinet, its door hanging crooked on rusted hinges. Slowly, carefully, I pulled it open. Inside were boxes, stacked and covered in cobwebs. I reached for the top one, brushing away the dust. My fingers traced faded handwriting. Thompson family, 1962. My heart skipped. Mrs. Thompson. Our neighbor. I pulled the box open, revealing letters tied together with string, yellowed newspaper clippings, and a small leather-bound diary. My hands shook as I untied the letters. They were addressed to Mary Thompson, each one filled with words of worry, about noises, about things disappearing, about the basement. The diary told an even darker story. Mark keeps hearing voices. The children say the man in the basement watches them when I'm not home. I can't make sense of it. We should have never moved here. I snapped the diary shut, my breath uneven. If Mrs. Thompson had lived here before, why hadn't she told Mama when she warned me yesterday? And what did she mean about the last family leaving in a hurry? Before I could think further, the light above me flicked off, darkness swallowed me. My flashlight was the only glow left, its weak circle of light trembling across the floor as my hand shook. Panic surged through me. I stumbled backward, staring up the stairs. The trapdoor had closed. "Mark!" I shouted. My voice cracked against the stone walls. No answer. I scrambled up the stairs, pounding on the wood above me. "Open the door!" I screamed, but it wouldn't budge. Someone, or something, had shut me in. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices. Only silence. I forced myself back down the steps, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. My chest rose and fell in shallow gasps, but I knew I couldn't just wait. There had to be another way out. Scanning the basement, I noticed the far wall wasn't smooth concrete like the others. Part of it looked newer, patched together with mismatched bricks. I ran my hand along it, feeling the uneven surface. The diary's words echoed in my head. Voices. The man in the basement. My flashlight caught something faint at the base of the wall. A crack, thin but deep. I knelt, prying my fingers into the gap, and pulled. A loose brick shifted. Then another. My heart raced as a small opening appeared, revealing a narrow passage leading further underground. The air seeping through was colder, sharper. I swallowed hard, torn between fear and curiosity, but I couldn't ignore it. Whoever, or whatever, had closed the trapdoor clearly didn't want me to leave. And if I wanted answers, I had no choice but to go deeper. I crouched low, pushing myself into the passage, the rough bricks scraping my shoulders. The flashlight beam wavered, illuminating damp earth walls closing in tight around me. The air smelled of rot, thick and suffocating. For a moment, I considered turning back, pounding on the trapdoor until my voice gave out. But something inside me pushed forward, step by slow step. I needed to know why this basement existed, why that diary warned of voices, and why photos of me and Mark were hidden here. The silence of the passage pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. Each breath echoed in my ears. Then, from the darkness ahead, came a whisper. The whisper slid through the passage like a thread of cold air, brushing against my ear. I froze. My flashlight trembled in my hand, the weak beam bouncing along the narrow walls. I told myself it was just my imagination, the echo of my own breathing. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I forced myself forward, one shaky step at a time. The ground sloped downward, and the passage widened slightly, just enough for me to straighten up. The damp smell grew stronger, mixed with something metallic, almost like rust. Or blood. I didn't dare linger on the thought. "Who's there?" I whispered, though I wasn't sure I wanted an answer. This time, the reply came clearer. A low, gravelly voice. "You shouldn't have come here." My knees nearly buckled. My throat went dry. "What do you mean? Who are you?" I tried to sound braver than I felt, but my voice cracked on the last word. The silence stretched again. My flashlight flickered, and I shook it desperately until the light steadied. That was when I saw it, a shape at the end of the passage. A figure, crouched low, its back turned to me. I gasped, stepping back instinctively, but the wall pressed hard against my spine. The figure shifted, rising slowly, its shadow stretching long across the dirt floor. My flashlight caught fragments, a hand, pale and scarred, hair, long and tangled, clothes torn and filthy. "I've been waiting," the voice said, calm but unsettling. "Every family comes here eventually, and every family must choose." My heart hammered so loud it drowned out everything else. "Choose what?" The figure turned slightly, just enough for me to glimpse a hollow face, eyes too sharp, too knowing. "Stay," he whispered, "or leave forever." The words from Mrs. Thompson's diary rushed back into my head. The man in the basement, the voices, the children saying someone watched them. My stomach twisted. Could this be who she meant? I swallowed hard. What do you want from me? He tilted his head, studying me like I was the intruder, not him. I don't want. The house wants. It keeps its own. Oh, it spits them out. But not without a price. I shook my head, trying to make sense of it. You're not making any sense. There's no such thing as a house that decides people's lives. The man's lips curled into something between a smile and a sneer. Then why are you down here, holding pictures of yourself you never posed for? My chest tightened. He was right. I had no explanation. The figure stepped closer, his bare feet silent on the dirt. My instinct screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. You have two choices, he said softly, but with a weight that pressed into me like a stone. You can stay, accept the house, become part of its story, like the others before you. Or you can leave, but if you do, you must never return. Not even to the man upstairs you call your husband. His words hit me like a physical blow. What? No, that's insane. Mark is my husband. I can't just leave him. The man's expression hardened. If you stay, the house will keep you. If you leave, the house will take him. Either way, it takes something. That is the price. My head spun. I stumbled back against the wall, clutching my flashlight like it could shield me. No, I don't believe you. This is some kind of trick. But deep down, I wasn't sure. The photographs, the diary, the trapdoor slamming shut. Something was wrong here, something I couldn't explain away. The figure stepped aside, gesturing deeper into the passage. See for yourself. Walk further, and the house will show you. But remember, the deeper you go, the less chance you'll have to turn back. I stood frozen, my mind racing. Could I really trust anything he said? Could I trust myself? A sound echoed behind me, the faintest scratching against the brick, like nails dragging slowly down stone. My skin prickled. I whirled around, but the passage was empty. When I turned back, the man was gone. My flashlight beam darted frantically across the dirt floor, but there was no trace of him. Only the passage stretching on. Dark and colder did I force my feet forward, each step heavier than the last. The air grew icy, my breath visible in the beam of light. Then, the walls themselves seemed to shift. My flashlight illuminated carvings, crude drawings scratched into the stone. Families, children, always standing in front of the house. And then I saw us again, me and Mark. This time, though, the carving showed me standing alone. No, I whispered, my throat tightening. The ground suddenly trembled under me, a low rumble rolling through the passage. My flashlight flickered, and in the brief darkness, I thought I saw faces pressing out of the walls, pale, twisted, whispering words I couldn't understand. I stumbled forward until the rumbling stopped. My legs shook so badly I nearly collapsed at last. The passage opened into a small chamber. In the center stood a mirror, tall and old, its frame tarnished with age. My reflection stared back at me, wide eyes, hair matted with sweat, face pale as chalk. But then the image shifted. In the mirror, I wasn't alone. Mark stood beside me, smiling, holding my hand. For a moment, relief washed through me, until I realized his eyes weren't his. They were hollow, black, the same as the man in the passage. No. I screamed, stumbling back. The image shattered, shards scattering across the dirt floor, though the mirror itself hadn't broken. My reflection returned, alone and shaking. And then the whisper came again, curling through the chamber like smoke. Choose! I dropped to my knees, clutching my chest, gasping for air. My mind spun with the impossible choice, the house's ultimatum echoing inside me. Stay and lose myself. Leave and lose Mark. The walls seemed to close in, the air pressing heavy against my lungs. I knew I couldn't stay down here forever. A decision had to be made. But how do you choose between yourself and the person you love most? The whisper came one last time, louder now, impossible to ignore. Choose now, before the house chooses for you. The whisper clung to me long after it faded, echoing inside my skull like a command carved into stone. Choose now, before the house chooses for you. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. My flashlight felt heavier in my hand, the beam shaking across the chamber's dirt walls. I didn't move. Couldn't move. My knees pressed into the cold floor, and all I could do was breathe shallow, ragged breaths while my mind spun in circles. Stay and lose myself. Leave and lose Mark. Neither path felt survivable. But then, I noticed something. The scattered shards from the illusionary mirror weren't just lying randomly. They had formed a shape. At first, I thought it was an accident, just the chaos of glass hitting the ground. But no. The pieces lined up into something deliberate. An arrow, pointing toward a narrow crack in the chamber wall that I crawled closer, pressing my palm against the crack. To my shock, the wall gave way with a low groan, crumbling enough to reveal another tunnel. My pulse quickened. This wasn't just coincidence. Someone, or something, wanted me to find this. I squeezed through, my shoulders scraping rough stone until the tunnel opened into a low, circular room. The smell hit me first. Damp, old wood and something sour, like forgotten air trapped for decades. My flashlight beam skimmed across the room until it landed on rows of boxes stacked against the walls. Dust puffed into the air with every step I took. The closest box was nailed shut, but the wood was so rotted I pried it open with my bare hands. Inside were papers, hundreds of them, faded photographs, handwritten letters, and names. Every slip of paper carried names I didn't recognize. Families, dates, notes written in desperate, shaky handwriting. One line chilled me so much I read it twice. We gave the house what it wanted. It still wasn't enough. I sat on the cold floor, digging through the papers. One letter, written in elegant cursive, caught my eye. The ink had bled in places, but the words were still legible. To whoever finds this, know that the house does not let go. It feeds on promises broken and secrets buried. We thought leaving would save us, but it followed. We thought giving it one of our own would satisfy it, but it wanted more. If you live here now, forgive yourself quickly. You will not forgive what comes next. My stomach flipped. The handwriting, it was the same as Mrs. Thompson's diary upstairs. This was her. This was her final note. I pressed the paper to my chest, whispering, "Oh God, what happened to you?" The flashlight flickered, and for just a second, I swore I saw someone kneeling across the room, their face hidden in shadow. I blinked, and they were gone at the far end of the chamber, half buried in date. I spotted a wooden chest. Unlike the boxes, this one was carved with intricate patterns, symbols that twisted in on themselves, almost alive. My hand shook as I brushed dirt away and forced it open. Inside lay children's toys, a doll with one eye missing, a set of marbles, dull and cracked, a boy's cap. My throat tightened as I realized each item had a small tag attached, marked with names and years. One tag made my blood run cold. Mark, 1992. I stumbled back so fast I nearly dropped my flashlight. My husband's name. His birth year. What was his name doing here, decades before we ever set foot in this house? No, I whispered, shaking my head. No, this doesn't make sense. This can't be him. But deep down, I knew. The house had known him long before I did. The chest slammed shut on its own, making me yelp. A freezing gust swept through the chamber, extinguishing my flashlight. Panic surged in my veins as darkness swallowed me whole. Then, light bloomed, not from my flashlight, but from the walls themselves. Images shimmered across the stone like old film reels playing in silence. I saw Mark, younger, no more than 10. He stood in this very chamber, holding the same cap I'd just touched. Behind him, a woman sobbed, her face buried in her hands. A man's voice roared in anger, though the words were muffled. The boy, Mark, looked straight at me, as though he could see me through time. His lips moved silently, but I understood. Run. The vision shattered. I was left in darkness again, trembling so violently my teeth chattered. The whisper returned, louder this time, vibrating through the walls. Now you know the truth. He belongs to the house. Always has. Will you give him back? Or will you bury yourself with him? Tears blurred my vision, though there was nothing to see. My husband, my Mark, wasn't just a victim. He was part of this house, bound to it long before I met him. Had he known? Was that why he never wanted to talk about his childhood? I pressed my hands to my ears, screaming, "Stop! Stop it! This isn't real." But the whisper only grew colder. Choose, or the house will choose for you. I dropped to the floor, clutching the faded photograph of Mark from the chest, my heart splitting in two. The house had revealed its buried truth. And now, I had to face the price of knowing it. The air in the chamber thickened until it felt like breathing through wet cloth. The whispers didn't stop this time. They circled me, layered voices rising and falling, demanding, taunting, pressing into my skull. Choose, choose, choose. My hands trembled around the photograph of young Mark, its corners cutting into my palms. My heart screamed for me to hold on to him, to fight, to believe there was still a way out. But my mind, the terrified, logical part of me, kept repeating the words carved into the walls. The house does not let go. Suddenly, the chamber door groaned open. My flashlight, dead minutes ago, sparked back to life, casting its weak beam into the tunnel. A shadow appeared, tall and familiar. Sarah! Mark's voice, broken and strained. He stumbled inside, his face pale, his eyes wild. I froze, clutching the photograph tighter. The memory of the vision burned behind my eyes. Mark as a boy, here in this very place. He reached for me. We don't have time. We need to get out, now. But the house had other plans. The ground quaked beneath us, dust raining from the ceiling. The whispers sharpened into a roar. He belongs to us. Give him back. I shoved the photograph against Mark's chest. Explain this. Why is your name here? Why did they know you? His face crumpled. He staggered back, leaning against the wall as though the truth itself weighed him down. I didn't think it would matter. I thought if I ignored it, if I never spoke of it, maybe it would forget me. My knees nearly gave out. You knew. All this time, you knew the house was waiting for you. He shook his head, tears streaking down his dote-covered cheeks. Not like this. I remembered pieces, a basement, shadows, my mother crying, but I buried it. Sarah, I swear, I buried it because I wanted a life with you. I wanted to be free. The house howled in fury, the chest rattling, boxes toppling from shelves. My husband's truth was out, but the house was still hungry. The voice returned, thunderous and final. Leave him and walk free. Stay with him, and you will rot together. Choose. My body shook as if caught in a storm. Could I abandon him, the man I'd built my life around, knowing he was tied to something beyond saving? Or could I stay, sacrifice myself to a curse I never asked for, because love demanded nothing less? Mark dropped to his knees in front of me. Sarah, listen to me. You need to leave. Don't fight this. Don't throw your life away for me. I cupped his face, desperate, torn. And let it take you, after everything we've survived, after all the promises we made. His eyes searched mine, raw and pleading. You were my one escape, the only good I ever had. If you stay, then it wins, and I can't let that happen. The chamber trembled, stones cracking in the walls. Time was slipping away. My chest burned with grief so deep I could barely breathe. I kissed Mark's forehead, pressing the photograph back into his hand. I will never stop loving you, but I can't let this house have both of us. He shook his head, sobbing, but I forced myself to pull away. The tunnel behind me glowed faintly, a way out offered only to me. The whispers hissed approval. Yes, yes, leave him. Every step toward that tunnel felt like tearing my soul in half. Mark's cries echoed behind me, his voice shattering with every word. Sarah, don't do this. Don't leave me here. I stopped once, my hand on the cold stone, and whispered, Forgive me. And then, I ran. The moment I crossed the threshold, the tunnel collapsed behind me with a deafening roar. Dust filled the air, choking my lungs, but I kept crawling, kept pushing, until at last I burst into the open night. The house loomed behind me, its windows dark, its walls silent. For the first time, it didn't call to me. It had what it wanted. I collapsed on the damp grass, sobbing into the earth. My chest felt hollow, my body shaking uncontrollably. Mark was gone. The man I loved, consumed by a truth he could never escape. For days, I couldn't bring myself to leave the property. I camped outside, staring at the house, waiting for a sign that he was still alive, that somehow he had escaped. But the silence never broke. Eventually, I walked away. I left everything, our belongings, our dreams, the life we thought we'd build. All that remained was the lesson burned into my soul months later. While sorting through old family papers in storage, I found something I had never noticed before, a letter from my father. His handwriting was shaky, but the words pierced me. My dearest Sarah, if you ever find yourself trapped between love and survival, remember this. Love is not proven by dying together. It is proven by living on, carrying the memory, and breaking the curse they could not. I wept as I read it, because in that letter, I finally understood. My father had faced his own impossible choice once, long before me. He had chosen survival, so I could exist. And now, I had done the same. I carry Mark with me every day. His laughter, his kindness, his flaws, they live in me, even if the house claims his body. And though guilt still gnaws at me, I know I honored him the only way I could. By living, by telling the story, so that the truth is no longer buried.